That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. It is officially election time. Grab your popcorn. Pick your candidate that was pre-selected for you. And sit back and be entertained. Or you could, try something different. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, right? Well, what's the different result here? As sadly, we have some who've fallen into the whole Q movement. And for those of you who haven't caught on to that, it's a controlled psyop, right? They've gotten all these different people from all these different factions to unite under one thing. I mean, come on, man. That's like the telltale sign of the serpent right there. There's a lot of things that describe the devil, right? And I've seen a lot of sermons on this, but there's one that I have never seen, and that's on the subtlety of the serpent. Subtlety. You ever look that up? I could give you the definition for it, but I would just strongly encourage you to do your own homework. Because I think maybe the error on my part is I present some of the stuff just too much, and it doesn't leave any room for you guys to go out and actually look this stuff up for yourself. You could spend your time sitting here surfing the internet, playing video games, or whatever feeds your flesh at the moment. Or you could actually seek Christ. Just a thought. But, the subtlety, right? Think about that. Most subtle of all the beasts on the earth. Being able to manipulate or achieve the end result that they want with the target not being aware of it. Wow, I think we've heard of some of those things before in some of the alphabet agencies, right? Isn't that their MO? Little ironic, don't you think? So I'm just really curious, because especially when you do go out and you try to talk to a lot of people who have fallen either into the left or into the right, each side in a war believes themselves to be justified. When a good example here, the Civil War in the United States, right, going all the way back there, right? Each side considered itself justified and God on their side. Go back to some of these other wars, and when you look at it, if you objectively look at the history, right, Hitler took over in Germany because he controlled the media. Right after World War II, Operation Paperclip, and then, a bunch of other things. But there's the whole, how did he get to power in the first place? Propaganda. Since the 40s and 30s, well, I mean, actually, I guess even before then, the subtlety of the serpent. Stirring up the strife. You allow a few little things to go on over here, knowing full well that it's going to piss off your people, right? Well, what's the end result? Well, then they ask you, or they beg you, or they demand for you to make the change that you wanted to make in the first place. Here's the sad thing. One of the things that's kept this country so prosperous, and this might seem crazy to a lot of Christians, is the separation of church and state. I know I'll get some hate from some of the NAR Christians on this, but it's the truth. God gave us free will. God has allowed us to either follow him or to rebel against him. And sad truth is, every single one of us is rebellious by nature. That's just who you are. You are a rebel. You have been since the day you were born. You have this inherent flaw in you called sin, and every single one of us has it, in them. And it's only through Christ can you actually, conquer that sin. because of his grace and his atoning blood, of course. But there's a lot of other people that are trying to do it a different way. Because it's not about us. It's about him. It's about faith. Faith in the one whom was sent. The more I sit there and I think about the actual law itself, because the law is not bad, but the law, it points out every single thing that's wrong with you. And then it presents it out there right in your face, and it makes you guilty, but it can't actually save you. And then steps God again through his Son, Jesus Christ. He can keep the law. Not only can he keep the law, he kept it flawlessly. Not only did he keep it flawlessly, but he's the only one who has ever pleased God, or in whom God is most pleased. So when you have to stand before him one day, as it states in Psalms 82, that there is a day of judgment, even for the angels. The angels thought themselves immortal, but God, the Father, what did he say? You think that you're immortal, but one day you shall fall and die like one of the Adam, one of the men. What are angels? Principalities, powers, and spirits. And then a really interesting word study, especially in the Greek, is, I can't remember the number that they have in Strong's or whatever for it, but it's satanas. Because I was actually looking up the word Satan just to see, I knew that it meant accuser, or the ha-satan, right? But going through and actually looking at it in the Greek, and it was really interesting that one of the many areas where it's translated is it's actually used in, as meaning like a principality or a power or a spirit. Something that's like puppeting somebody, that's influencing you to do something that you shouldn't do. Like Paul said, take captive every thought. Not every thought you get to your own. Just saying. How many times have you followed your own advice and it's led you to someplace you didn't, exactly want to be once you realized you were there? That's kind of what the wickedness does. Subtle. Oh, so subtle. But right now in this election, I've never seen people willing to get in fistfights or burn down their own city, let alone somebody else's. And here's the sad truth. This is the worst part. Even if they had a war and none of us showed up, they've already paid people on both sides to attend. They learned from that mistake, I guess, a few cycles back. So it doesn't matter which side you choose. You choose one of those two sides, you're going to end up going in the same direction that they want you to go. Free will, you can do whatever you want. Personally, I don't buy into this left-wing, right-wing thing anymore. I made a mistake last time. And, I guess going to really go in there and I'm going to write in Jesus Christ. I had some people tell me I'm wasting a vote. And considering they're Christians, I found that ironic. Where's your faith? It's at least, if I get to pick who my ruler is, I get to pick who's over top of me, I get to pick my king, I'd rather it be Jesus. No man's going to save this country. That's the sad truth. Then get accused of being unpatriotic, un-American. I gave 6 years and the better part of my youth for this country. And when I got back, I realized that they love you when you're in. I just don't love you when you're out. It is what it is, I guess. No hard feelings. I've long let that go. But I've sat here and watched many of my brothers and sisters end up taking their own life, be thrown in prison, or even worse. Yeah, there's actually worse. All for what? For a few things that will fade away? For temporary comfort? I don't want to be comforted for 5 minutes. I want to be comforted for eternity. And there's nothing you can find here on earth, and it's nothing that you can make with your own two hands or acquire with your own two hands. Everything here is eventually going to perish. But the one thing that won't perish will be your soul. Be you, the very essence of you. And outside of Christ, outside of God, it will perish. And that's a sad thing. You ever actually thought about the wrath of God? Who's the one who punishes you? You know, who's the one whom the wrath, when it's poured on, who's the one dishing it out? God, right? The creator of all things. That's the one that these people are going to be going up against. God doesn't ask you to do anything that's not reasonable. Love thy neighbor. Be kind to people. Forgive. Love as you've been loved. You know, love others the same way that he has loved you. Forgive as you've been forgiven. When you think about, debt, right? Your sin. How much debt have you incurred with God? He forgave you of all of that. And when you go back and you read the parables of it, it'd be considered hypocrisy to be forgiven of that debt, but then want to drag somebody else, before the judge to have them destroyed for something that you yourself are guilty of, which actually goes all the way back into Deuteronomy, that you can't accuse somebody of a crime or a sin that you yourself are guilty of. Don't be distracted by the little things. And another one, here on the internet land, you're only going to be able to reach so many people, and the time's eventually going to come, you ain't going to be able to use any of this stuff. They ain't going to let you. They're not going to let you use this stuff because you ain't playing by their rules. You don't want to play their game. So eventually, the only way you're going to be able to actually talk to people or reach people is going to be in person. And quite honestly, the best results you're going to get are going to be people that you actually talk to in the flesh, not people you talk to over these screens and these devices. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a good place to fellowship. It's a good way to meet other brothers and sisters and to, bounce ideas off one another. But at the end of the day, you ever think that maybe the reason God has us all spread out and the reason that you woke up in the first place was so you could go through in your own little towns and your own little neighborhoods and your own little cliques and your own little families and, bring him a supper worth eating. You ever read the parable of the unprofitable servant? Prepare him that he may eat. It's just not a works-based salvation. If you're truly born again, you should want others to come to know Christ, right? Isn't that a byproduct of being saved? Your gratitude? You're not doing good things going, well, God, did you take account of that? Did I get a gold star next to my name for doing that? How many extra rubies in heaven do I get for doing this if I do this? If that's the way you're approaching your salvation, I hate to say it like this, but I believe you might be deceived. It says store up treasures in heaven. Doesn't say to try to work for them. Just saying. But go through, really, really go through and actually study the gospel. Because whether or not, you believe reality is changing around you, if you've woken up and if you see that, what better time would there ever be to actually go through and actually start learning? Actually learning the teachings of Christ. Because if you're worried about the words changing, and if you're hanging on every word, wouldn't it behoove you to actually go through and actually get the gospel written on your heart? That way, you could go through, and if you needed to, you could present the gospel to anybody. A brother of mine really hit me hard with this one. I'm a 9-year-old little child. Give me the gospel. See, I could give you the gospel or try to, well, it wasn't even really giving the gospel, and that's what I realized. All I was doing was I could sit here and point out all the things wrong with it, or with what they were into, but I didn't actually offer them an avenue of escape. I didn't actually present Christ. I didn't actually give them the gospel. I mean, we would eventually get into it, but what's the most important thing? I think sometimes a lot of us, we get off running on our own, trying to do our own little thing, trying to serve God in our own way. And rather than allowing ourselves to be used by God, we try to tell God how we want to be used. Well, God, I want to do this. I know you want me to do this over here. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. This is what I think that I'm good at. So, to all my brothers, all my sisters, much love. God bless. And, well, I guess when it comes to... Yep. Make your own decisions, people. Make your own decisions. Don't let somebody do your thinking for you. When people do your thinking for you, that's how things get really messed up.